Charisma Quotient. I'm your host, Kim Seltzer, a dating and makeover expert, where I will help you build confidence, make connections, and find love from the outside in. I've been thinking a lot lately about the power of personal transformation. I mean, transformation, if you look in the dictionary, it's defined as a thorough or dramatic change in form or appearance. I mean, that's kind of broad, right? And obviously, when you go through transformation, there's inside and out. That's what I'm all about. When we are asked to undergo a transformation, we must also let go. Let go of that which is no longer serving us in order to call in that which does. That's really, really important. That's why, like, even clearing your closet, creating room for new clothes can really transform your energy as well. Transformation is a journey of self-discovery and acceptance, which helps you thrive and survive and enjoy positive mental health and well-being. And life is always making demands of you, and it can feel satisfying when you are able to meet those demands through transforming who you are and what you do. It facilitates greater self-love, which, by the way, in turn attracts love. Because, as I always say, when you love you, that's when other people do too. I know it's really simplistic, but honestly, at the end of the day, people come to me all the time. Kimmy, help me find my soulmate. Kimmy, help me find love. But at the end of the day, when they find their own self-love, that's when the magic happens, because that's so attractive. And as you get older, you go through life experiences that shape who you are, and that determines who you attract in your life. Now, this is where the transformation comes in. I always half joke, now don't get mad at me, that we should have a partner for each decade in our lives. Sometimes I really think that, because who we are, say in our 20s, is so vastly different than when we are in our 50s and what we're looking for. So if you know me or have been listening to my podcast for a while, know that I'm all about transformation, which is rooted in my own story of going from frumpy mom to sexy mama when I had my red dress moment. And it really did take an internal shift in the way that I showed up, to then go inward to build my confidence and eventually attract new love. And one thing I don't think I ever shared is that while I was going through this transformation, a lot of hard stuff was happening, a lot of uncomfortable stuff was going on. And it wasn't easy. Like, it wasn't just like, oh, I tried on the red dress and poof, my life was great. It was not all rainbows and roses. I'll just say that. Being a single mom in a new state with no support system, with two small kids under the age of 3, let me tell you, it really sucked. I don't even know what word to describe it. I remember those nights lying in bed, crying, not knowing how I was going to move on and have the energy to find a new career. There was no way I could help anybody at that point as a therapist. I'm like, you think you have issues? Let me go on the couch for a second. And I remember not having one single friend to confide in, while being stared by married moms who complain. Like, I just remember being at school with my kids and the moms were complaining about their bad manicure. I did not relate at all. And forget about even thinking about dating. I had hit rock bottom. And even after my red dress moment, I wanted to go back in my oversized black clothes, crawl back in bed, and never see the world again. But obviously, I didn't, right? You're listening to me now. I used my discomfort and used my pain to push me forward into this new life I have now. And let me tell you that the people I have attracted in my life now are so different than the ones I had before when I was in that dark place. And adversity and transformation, I really want you to get this. It's an important podcast today, are gifts in disguise. But you can't always see it at the time. It's not until you go through it and you look back and you're like, oh, wow, there's the gift. Be willing to be uncomfortable. Change is uncomfortable. Realize that, accept it, embrace it. People tend to cling to stability and comfort, but your personal transformation requires you to step into new environments, meet new people, and do things that you're not used to. And guess what? That is what attracts love into your life, as you need it now. So, with me today is an awesome guy who has certainly gone through quite a personal transformation and now helps others do the same and better their lives. As a certified trainer in NLP and life coaching, he brings his clients a wealth of knowledge and expertise to help them overcome obstacles in their day to day work and personal relationships. Having gone from cherished football star to respected police officer to felon, serving prison time. And he is a rare gem and a real world expert in what it takes to survive and thrive, regardless of circumstances. With support, his clients experience personal transformation that helps them make more money and live better in every way. He is the author of his new book, super exciting, Badge Bars to Beyond: How I Became Back from Sinning to Winning. Joe Kelley, hi.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on. The beginning, what you were saying, and every topic hit me on so many different levels. So
Oh,
many. And I'm not mad at you for the first one. Me and my wife talk about it all the time. I think part of the beginning of our relationship is we were both looking for somebody that wanted to grow together. It was kind of like the bar, because we're not who we were 10 years ago, like you said. But we constantly work together and separately on our personal growth, business growth, relationships growth, and we constantly do that. So I
I
appreciate.
love that. I mean, this is I love you guys so much. I had the pleasure of meeting both of you. We're in a mastermind group together, and I want to like actually go back in time because like seeing the two of you now, I would never know this story you had. Like it's crazy to me, and I think it's so inspirational because there's a lot of people who might be in a challenging place, in a low place, thinking, how can I ever get there? So I would love for you to share your story because you have a lot of twists and turns.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, considering some of our circle that we've been around. And when I share my story, and they look at me like, "Wow," and my story is basically, in the beginning, I was proud of what I did. I worked very hard to go to college and school. I earned athletic scholarships for football and baseball. I got into the police academy at a very early age. Not only was I, a police officer, I was on the emergency response team. I was K-9. I went right up through all of it. You know what I mean? And I had many accomplishments in my life. And then there was a dark time, and I call it became a defining moment where I got hurt on the job. And a lot of the stuff that I was going through during that time as a police officer, seeing stuff that people normally don't see, and dealing with a lot of stuff emotionally. As police officers, we're taught to give the help, not ask for it.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And with that, my ego and my pride and everything held me back. So me not asking for help and talking about the things that were bothering me internally, it would come out in home during my marriage or with the lieutenant, the authority figures. And when I got hurt, they prescribed me Percocet. And when they prescribed me Percocet and I was on that medication, it took away all those internal feelings. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Not right away. I took it, to go back to work faster because I was never one to sit on the couch and be laid up. So at first I was taking more and more of the medications because I just wanted to go back to doing the things I always did. And then, subconsciously or somewhere in there, it started numbing that pain and stuff that I would see from, bad car accidents and crib deaths and stuff that normal people don't see that I wasn't talking about. And, long story short, it was like the perfect storm.
Mm.
It eventually took everything from me, including my freedom. And I don't know. If you ever spent one night in jail, you realize how precious freedom is. And
Wow.
So a lot of my story is based on that. And when they prescribed that stuff, they gave me more and more because of my status in the community and who I was. And no one handed me a thing saying, "Hey, when you stop taking this, you're going to feel off, or you may not want to take so much of this." I was never given, those types of things that we all know now, and maybe we knew then, but I didn't. I just wanted to go do the things I wanted to do, and long story short, you'll read it in the book is a
Mm.
lot of that story. But the book is, obviously something I want a lot of people to read, but more importantly, I urge people to read it to learn from it. Because it's about, my downfall. And it doesn't matter if you're from Yale or jail, addiction doesn't discriminate. I was raised very well, I did well for myself. And things happen. And there's a lot of people out there, that are struggling, or continue to struggle, or have passed away, that at a very young age. So I'm very passionate about what I do. And the book is, it's the hero's journey type of story, but a lot of my book is based on how I came back from it all, because a big part for me, it wasn't about the substances. When the losses came, and my losses was my identity. I was a police officer. I was this, I was that, and when all that was taken away, I had to figure out what I was going to do. And unfortunately, for me, I got very angry, and I'll show you, but the only one I showed was myself, but, despite the obstacles and everything that was coming at me, when I had some clarity, I learned I never failed. I learned, I fought back, I got up, and I reclaimed my life. And a lot of my book is based on positivity of, how I did that, because I know I'm a low percentage, and to go from that, to owning multi-million-dollar companies and working with high executive CEOs who are actually calling me to help them with their businesses, there's a lot to say about that. It's not like a problem where now I'm running stagnant in my life and I'm working a 9-to-5 job. I make my schedule. I remarried, 3 beautiful kids, beautiful home. For me, everyone defines success differently. Some it's financial, for some it's this, some it's that. For me, it's freedom. Freedom to be able to spend time with my children when I want to spend time with them, spend time with my wife, make my own schedule, financially to be okay. I make a good living, but finances isn't everything to me. It's that freedom to do the things that I want to do.
That's so beautiful. This story is fantastic, and like the hero's journey, as you said, but just the lessons that you learn. I want to talk a little bit about that later on. But going back to that dark place, I was really interested in what you said about also being so used to serving others and not enough of serving yourself, and being able to express what was going on and asking for what you need. And it's interesting when you fell in that dark place, that even like the drugs were almost kind of numbing you out in a way, like kind of keeping you dead from that, but also maybe facing it a little bit in some ways. And I wondered, like, did you find that you attracted a different kinds of people in your life back then? And like, like, was there a difference?
Yeah, most of my life, I was blessed with a great athletic ability.
Right.
I was from Massachusetts, and in Massachusetts, it's real different. Blue collar state, get a union job, do this, do that. I thought as a police officer, that was the ultimate job ever.
Oh my God. Can you just say blue collar again? That was so
Yeah,
cute. Blue koala. If you didn't hear it before, you definitely heard it just then.
Yeah.
Good.
But for me, I was always put on a pedestal most of my life, and with pedestals and with that type of attention and stuff, comes, not people that are your real friends. They're there for the ride. They're there for the good times, and I didn't realize how many people I had surrounded myself with, because when I went away, and it's a long story, and we're not gonna, talk about all of it. You can read the book as well, or inbox me or whatever else. When I went away, I didn't have any visitors. I had completely was a tornado through most people's lives, because I had lost, hope and purpose for myself,
Wow.
and after it all came out, you had touched on it earlier when you first began the podcast, is I couldn't see beyond that. Here was a situation for me when I say it wasn't about the substances, it was the inner loss and in the feeling. I was a police officer, the athletic all-star, this and that. Now I find myself a year later sitting in a cell going, how the hell did I get here? When I started to clear up. And now I'm a convicted felon. So what am I going to do with my life? I can't go back to police work.
I just want to comment that this is really important because I have a lot of clients that talk about this where, maybe they have confidence at work or what they do for a living, and their identity gets wrapped up in what they do and what they do for others versus who they are. And that's a big distinction. And I think part of that personal transformation, it sounds like, was like realizing that you're so much more. It's not just who you are. And when your identity gets wrapped up in there, there's also like these unauthentic friendships that come out of it or relationships. So that's really interesting. Anyway, I just want to highlight that because that was super powerful.
Yeah. So I had to come to grips with it, and I had to claw myself out of the hell some way, somehow. But it took me a while to get there until I decided, I started having people from my past that I played athletics with, that, I was captain of the football team, this and that, who inboxed me or would text me stuff I hadn't heard from people in 10 years that were like, Joe, remember who you are. And they'd use analogies on the football field. It's 4th and 1. You've never failed us. Remember who you are. It was stuff that really touched me because I needed to remember, because I was so like laser focused on my situation and everything else. And, what society says about, going to jail and being it was all nonviolent criminal offenses. It was drug stuff that I did to get what I needed. Never, wanted to hurt anyone, never touched anyone physically, but now I was sitting, that was the hardest part of my life. It wasn't so much going through it, was what do I do now?
Yeah. Gosh. And I wondered when you were in that kind of rock bottom place. I always say to people, you sometimes have to hit rock bottom before you can change. Like that's when you're like faced with that moment, were there steps that you took to get out of that dark place? Because some people have such a hard time lifting themselves up. I'm just curious because you really did.
And everyone's story is, different. My book is my story, and from my perspective. You know what I mean? But I'll tell you what, incarceration, I don't wish it on anybody, and I know not everyone's story is the same. But our incarceration gave me the time I was unwilling to give myself. It's everything down. It made me sit with myself. It made me, really think about what I was doing, where I was at and how I got there. I, prior to being incarcerated, my using time was a very short time, but like anything in life, I do everything, either full go or no go, whether it's positive or negative. And it really hurt me. But I sat in there and I started to work on myself. I started to work on me mentally. I started journaling and writing stuff down. I joined the drug block where I could learn more about what was going on with me, and I learned a lot of stuff that came back from like childhood trauma as well. Childhood trauma, decisions that I had made, guilt and shame that I was carrying. And I worked a great deal on myself. And, when I got out, I decided that, hey, instead of saying, why me? I started saying, why not me? I started to think in the pot. I started to say to myself, I love that quote that everyone says is somebody took the same situation that you're complaining about and they won with it. And it resonated with me.
Ooh, that's good.
It resonated with me because I've always been very competitive, just born that way or raised that way or however that developed. And I've always been very persistent. And I thought to myself that maybe I went through this so my kids never have to go through it. There was a lot of things for me. And the change was I changed from, pointing the finger and being the victim to taking accountability and looking at it in the positive. And like today, you fast forward from that mindset there, I look back and I could say, yeah, if I wouldn't want to take any of it away. You know why? Because erase your past, you erase yourself. And it took,
my God, yeah.
And it took everything, prior to, my downfall, to everything I've done in terms of personal development, business development, everything else to make me the person I am today. You know what I mean? Even the bad stuff.
Yeah, that's so awesome. Because in terms of the mindset that you were talking about,
Sure.
that's really important. And I know you teach it too, with your coaching. When I work with clients, a lot of times, they intellectually get it. It's like, I know I'm in victim mentality. I know I'm in scarcity mindset, but it's so hard for them to move from one to other. Are there certain like techniques that you use on yourself or others?
Yeah, absolutely. When I got out, I did a lot of personal development stuff, and I got hooked on NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming, mindset work, hypnosis, time techniques, EFT, life coaching, and I love it all because I take everything from that and stuff that I learned during my law enforcement training in terms of interview interrogation, visual acuity, breaking people down. But I fell in love with it because with NLP and hypnosis and a lot of those different, I learned a lot about myself. When I first took it, it wasn't so much so I could work with other people. I always knew I wanted to work with other people and I was pretty good at it, right? But it taught me, more about myself. And it was like a do unto me before I could do with somebody else. And it changed my perspective on things, to be able to get rid of like limited beliefs in a matter of 30 seconds, to be able to, and this was a big one for me. And one of the things is called anchoring, right?
Yes,
and I can tell you a little bit about, but I love anchoring. You know why? Because I had a lot of problems with my internal states in terms of how I was feeling, you know what I mean? And what I felt about myself and how I felt about other people. And I didn't know how to snap out of it. Even if I knew it was taking me down a rabbit hole, I just didn't know how to get out of it. And NLP taught me, how to get out of those states. And you said it earlier, which you were hitting on everything that I love, because we're very similar, is getting out of states that no longer serve you. How awesome is that to be able to know or identify that you're in a state that's, say, anger, that's no longer serving your situation. And some people carry that for years. But to get rid of that within like a 30 to 40 seconds, wow.
I know, right? It's and when you put your mind to it and the type, how to do it, and you're a coach and you have the support system, it is amazing too how quickly you can transform it. And then it leaks into other areas of your life. And I wondered, as you were going through all this, from the rock bottom place to now, like, I'd love for you to share just also the relationships you had, like with women, like, were they vastly different? Like, did you see the transformation in that?
Absolutely. So for me, and maybe people that can identify, when I was going through that and my ex-wife had left me and my whole identity was gone and this and that, when I got initially sober off of that stuff, now I didn't have anything to numb the pain. So what was my next best trick? Not the smartest move was, oh, well, she's going to numb my pain because she makes me feel good.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? So, the codependency stuff came in, and like and then I'd be a tornado through women's lives, because I wasn't content on the inside because there was no work done. When I first met my wife, Maritza, who sets the bar very high, she's got her doctorate in every degree and thing you could possibly think.
Oh my God, she's fantastic. Yes.
When I met my wife, it was probably 2 years removed from incarceration. Financially, I had nothing. I had nothing materially. I was rebuilding my life. But I'll tell you this. When I moved to Florida a year before I met her, I said to myself, I'm not dating anybody. I'm not doing anything. I'm going to concentrate and work on myself. Though I didn't have the finances and everything else, it's the first time in a long time that I felt whole. I knew who I was. I felt I was going to the gym daily. I was working on my mindset. And when I met my wife, she took me to another level because she was into a lot of different stuff that I had never even heard of. Like, I heard of meditation, but pride and ego, I ain't doing that. When we first started dating, I wanted to be a part of her world. So I'm like, oh, I'll try it because I wanted to go with her. And I fell in love with it all because it changed me on the inside. You know, she's the one that introduced me to meditation, into Reiki, into A Course in Miracles, into NLP. You know, and like when I got introduced to this stuff that I had never been introduced, like I caught on fire with it.
Wow. And when you met her and you started developing this thing, did it feel so different than like your previous relationship?
It felt amazing because
Yeah.
I remember earlier on in our relationship, I didn't put any expectations when I first started dating her. I was like, you know what it is what it is. You know, she's nice. I love spending time with her, but I wasn't codependent on the situation. And she was well off, right? I wasn't codependent on her financially. I wasn't codependent on her for anything. If we did anything, it was something that I could also bring something to the relationship or to the date as well. You know, but it was so different because, you know, I always said, you know, I'll never put myself in a situation again that if my significant other or anybody else decides, hey, for whatever reason, they're just gone, you know what? I'm going to be okay. You know why? Because I've worked on myself. I've done enough work on myself, and I built a very good base. And that was back then. Now we've been married 9 years, 3 kids later, and you know.
Oh my gosh. It's amazing. I love what you said, like not having expectations, you know.
Yeah.
And I was just talking to a client the other day, and she was going to shut down and not put herself out there and at least just like talk to people because she's like, I think I really need to work on myself. And you know what? Working on yourself is fantastic. But what does that really mean? Are you sitting there in a dark room, rocking back and forth, you know, like I'm working on myself, you know, I'm like,
Right.
how are you going to break your pattern of the things that are causing you the pain? And so with working on yourself, it sounds like also you were just kind of open and me, you know, and that's when she kind of came into your life. And I think that's really important to not also compartmentalize, like I'm working on myself, then I find a partner, now I'm dating. It's like this energy that kind of just transcends from you
Absolutely.
because like what you said, there's just this peacefulness. Like you're so solid with who you are, it doesn't matter really what happens. And
Right.
and that is beautiful. And I think that's the magic.
And it's freeing. And like you said, I always say, you know, expectations to me, they're premeditated resentments. You know what I mean? Because a lot of times, you know, people don't meet our expectations. And maybe we need to look at what our expectations really are, you know?
Yes. Yes. Like in your, like when you were in that state of needing women to feed you,
Yeah.
your expectation was,
Yeah.
oh, well, I'll numb the pain with the women, you know,
Right. Or the gym or this.
the gym.
Everyone, you know, it's very typical and ordinary for codependent type of people. You
Mhm.
know, well, I knew for me, I couldn't do drugs, right? Because that
Right.
went lower. So now I'm on to women. That's not working. Now I'm on to the gym. That's not working. I was always looking for outside influences to fix an internal problem, and it doesn't work. You mean it may like kind of put a band-aid on it for, you know, a week or two, but eventually that stuff will leak out and come out. And not until I decided that, hey, we talked about it, is when you say you're going to work on yourself, first of all, you have to recognize the patterns that have got you there in the first place. Yeah,
Bam.
you got to recognize those patterns, right? You need to set up goals. You mean, I know for me, I'm a very routine person. Before in my life, I always said, for me personally, I need to wake up with purpose. There was a time in my life that I woke up and I had no purpose. I was lost. So today, you know, I schedule my days. I plan my days out. Doesn't mean it always falls that way, but I have purpose in terms of what I want to do. You know, and I don't know what's for me. I don't know what's worse than waking up and not having any purpose.
Ugh, yes. That's so important. Purpose and passion, you know, and
Yeah.
what drives us. And oh my God, there's so much. You and I were talking about this before we came on. Like you and I are going to go on and on. And I'm like, look at this. I'm like, how is it this time already? Um, Maybe like I would love to just hear as we kind of part. What are maybe one or two steps that people could take towards like a personal transformation? Is there something that you always like advise people to do?
Yeah, well, I'm a firm believer in having coaches, whether it's a business coach, a personal coach, you know what I mean, whatever you want to call it. But in order to get coaches, people have to have that word that most of us hate is humility. The ability to ask for help. When I know for me, in terms of my personal coach, when I went to them, it doesn't mean that they were any better than me. You mean I'm probably better than him in a lot of business areas and this and that, but I knew that this person knew what they were talking about. It resonated with me, so getting an outside perspective outside of a relationship and everything else is always a plus. It's always a plus. But the problem is it's the cheapest thing out there to get, but yet people won't do it because they lack humility, the ability to ask for help.
Yeah. And they
It's
don't see
so
the
easy.
value. Right.
Right.
Like, yeah, exactly.
Right.
But really it's not putting value on themselves. And that's
Right.
actually what we're talking about. So
Yeah.
yeah,
You know,
I think that is super
and
important.
I'll tell you this, I use my story all the time. I'm like, you heard part of my story of who I was and how I fell. I'm a convicted felon, that went to prison, that owns multi-million-dollar companies. Like, if I can do it, anybody can do it. There's nothing. I'm not. The only thing that I did was I invested in myself, and I believed in myself. And we had said earlier, and when you start to worry about stuff, I love that one too as well. When you worry about stuff, that's literally betting against yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, those are parting words of wisdom. I was going to ask you for that, but you already gave it. And I cannot believe, your story from sinning to winning is just it's just so amazing. So tell everyone where they can find the book and talk a
Yeah.
little bit about
So
that.
right now, the book is going to be launched the end of August. There'll be more news about it. But if you go to badgebarsbeyond.com, you can put your email in and you can sign up for the first chapter for free. The first chapter will be giving out probably the first 2 weeks of August, and you can get all the information there. And yeah, if you sign up for that in the email, you'll get everything about the book, when it's coming out, and more about me if you're interested.
Awesome. Joe, so good having you. Thanks for coming on and sharing your story. It was great.
Thanks, Kim. I appreciate you.
And thanks for joining me today. You listening. This has been the Charisma Quotient. I'm your host, of course, Kimmy Seltzer. Remember, you can build confidence, make connections, and find love from the outside in. And if you want to know more, make sure you go to my site, kimmyseltzer.com. And if you are having a hard time getting out of your own way with challenges you are dealing with, or getting out of your comfort zone to change, hop on a call with me to help you map out a plan to transform your life outside and in to attract love. Just click the link you see in the show notes to schedule that. And who knows, that one call could change the entire course of your life. And remember, working on you is working on your dating life. That's all for now.